Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. It is me, Pastor Tanya, and welcome to another week of Worship in Wellness. All right. I hope all is well. I hope you had an amazing Monday. I know some people feel like, oh, it's Monday. I went to work Monday. Oh my God, it's Monday. Monday is the second day of the week. Come on, we got to do better. So we're going to talk today about entrepreneurship. You know, if you find that you're at a job and you feel like there's more that I want to do, there's more that I could do, I don't know where to begin. I don't know if I can, or maybe I had a whole lot of ideas. I just haven't done anything with it. Maybe I started it and I put it away. Let's get into this good conversation. One of the things I want to share with you, if you are joining us, I want you to share this live. Why? Because here at Worship and Wellness, we believe sharing is caring. Right? You never know. People watch your social media page for all kind of stuff. And the funny thing is you really don't even know why people are some people are watching. So share it. Give them something to watch. And I want you to tag somebody, say, Tanya, come get this good information. Tag the name of the person that you'd like, that you know of, that maybe want to start a business or has started a business. You know, I think that one of the biggest challenges is not being informed, right? The word says we perish for lack of knowledge. So let's get the knowledge. Let's get the information. We have an amazing guest with us tonight, and he is no stranger not only to ministry but also to this topic of entrepreneurship. So I'm excited to have this conversation. But if you're joining us, I want you to tag your name so I know who's here. And let's have this good conversation. So we're going to pray, and then we're going to bring our guest on and just jump right on in. All right. Dear gracious and heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment in time. Thank you for this space. Thank you for the knowledge and the wisdom that you will bestow upon us this evening. Help us to take the information and apply it, Father, so that we can be good stewards, not only of the money that we'll receive, but of the gifts that you have already imparted to us. Thank you for resources, oh Heavenly Father, and help us to apply it. And we thank you right now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, you ready? Let's get into this. I'm going to bring on, that's none other than Apostle Craig in Coates.
Hey there.
Hey, Doctor. Good evening. How are you tonight?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good. I cannot complain. Hope your day was good.
It was a great day. I'm putting in a little extra time in the office tonight. That's what you do when you own the business.
Well, this is true. This is extremely true. And so we're going to
Yeah,
right on in,
sure.
Apostle, so to this month, we have been talking, we come into the new year, and a lot of times people start having that conversation about New Year's resolution, right? I'm going to do this for the new year. I'm going to do this year. But a lot of times we don't know how to plan, and we don't know what that looks like, and we don't know all that it goes into. And, being an entrepreneur, being somebody that has multiple businesses, you will know first and foremost that the one thing that people who say I'm going to start a business or to have my own business, they think I'm going to leave working for the man to have my own business so that I have a lot of free time. So we're going to get into that. Not yet, but we're going to get into that. And I want you to
You're
really
starting
share.
up something already.
I want us to share and get right into that. For those that are watching that may not be a part of First Start, or may not be a part of our ministry, or are aware of who you are, can you just share? It's so funny because before you share, I was typing your name, and then I was gonna put the business, and I had Growth Matters, and I was like, no, maybe I should put. I was like, this man got one too many jobs. I'm gonna just leave a name. So maybe you can just share a little bit of who you are, what you do, and the businesses that you possess.
Sure. I'm a Renaissance man.
I
I
like.
learned that I learned that in history at in college, that there's such a thing as a Renaissance man. It's someone who has many gifts and callings and abilities and manages them.
Mm-hmm.
So I am an entrepreneur, and I know that word is thrown around all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I am an entrepreneur. I am a person who starts up businesses and keep them going,
Sure.
and I love it. I've been an entrepreneur since I was probably 11,
Mm-hmm.
when I had the gift of playing music, and I was the youngest person probably in the city that played. And so churches were grabbing me up. Next, thing you know, I had a job every single Sunday. I was in a different church
Mm-hmm.
each Sunday, until I found a church that I really wanted to be a part of, which was Second Baptist Church. Woo woo! And I joined Second Baptist, and I was still full time minister of music, even through early parts of college and everything. I was employed, self-employed. I
Mm-hmm.
did have jobs that were kind of startup and left,
Mm-hmm.
that I worked. I worked for Woodward and Lothrop, which was called Woody's. I worked for that department store as a mannequin dresser, a visual designer.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at Garfinkel's in the same capacity, and I worked at Montgomery Ward when they redid the store and rebranded themselves. I was part of the team that got the first store ready here in Maryland.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
So
and
you
and
started out having jobs. I mean,
night jobs, yeah. And then in high
Mhm.
school, in 10th grade, I went into fashion. I went to the Ebony Fashion Fair, and I knew that's what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I started sewing. I started making clothes. And by the 12th grade, I was making a lot of the prom dresses that people wore, and
Mhm.
cummerbunds and bow ties, because they were popular then. The guys wore, and I made my things. And they were half made, but I was very proud because they were my work.
Yeah.
Uh, and then it helped me pay for school, and make my way through life, and buy my
Mm-hmm.
own vehicles and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
But mind you, I wasn't set up like a business should have been at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Managing and running it, all that stuff I didn't think was important. I just
Sure.
wanted to do my passion. And
Did you see yourself as an entrepreneur even then? Did you like how
absolutely,
we understand ourselves to be entrepreneurs now? Back then, did
yeah.
you see yourself like I'm an entrepreneur or I'm a businessman even
Yeah,
then?
I did, absolutely.
Okay.
That was part of the motivation. The
Mm-hmm.
idea that I was making money for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have to work for other people. Because when I did go to work for other people, I didn't last longer than 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, that family and folks who knew one way of working, they say, get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
So when I'd come home and didn't have the job, they looked at it like lazy or didn't want to work.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it was that I really loved working for myself,
Yeah.
setting my own schedule. And I mean, I would sew all night long. So it
Right.
wasn't like it was a quick 2 hour job. I would work through the night because I loved it. And
Well,
then
that.
I went into an apprenticeship with a
Mm-hmm.
designer, Stephanie, who is an amazing woman. She has a company called Steph Ty, her and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
But I was mentored by her in my 12th grade year. And I mean, I worked around the clock. We were together day and night working. I wasn't even getting paid. I just was getting the experience, which meant more than a paycheck.
Sure.
And I was getting exposure. And she was just an excellent teacher. She's an amazing lady. And I give her kudos to this day. So it took a lot of people that helped to build that image of what would I look like as an entrepreneur? What does that mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I found myself defining myself,
Right.
and feeling proud of myself.
Yeah.
And the fashion shows and all just really lit it up for me. And then in the ministry, people's response to my music and my gifting was just
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I had great mentors there, though. Jeff Jacobs was the mentor, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He was everything I wanted to be in a musician. He was a dynamic, great musician, wrote beautiful music, and
Mm-hmm.
had the disciplines to teach a choir like none other. And I
Right.
patterned myself. That's what I did in every area. I patterned myself after people that I felt were doing what I wanted to do. And I did it well because I studied them well.
Now that's you bring up a really good point about learning those that have trailblazed before you, right? And you
Mhm.
reference patterning yourself behind those that have gone before you. What would you say is the difference between that? People have to be careful the difference between patterning yourself and copying them.
Well, copy means that you don't see any originality in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You think that you got to be that person. That's an issue. You can't be
Yeah.
that person. They are uniquely who they are, and their experiences have shaped them. You
Yeah.
have to look at all of your experiences and have someone like that person help you put them into perspective
Sure.
so that you understand how to be the best you that you're called to be. And if that's what you're called to be,
Mm-hmm.
I was not only a musician, choir director, but then I discovered the gift of preaching, which I'd always mimicked and copied my uncle
Sure.
and other
Sure.
preachers as a kid. But when it was my time, I still needed people who saw that in me to help me channel and put that together as
Mm-hmm.
to how do I go about it and where does it fit in the scheme of who I am as a person,
That's
period.
that's
Because now, then at that point, I'm the musician, I am a clothes designer, I am a preacher,
yeah.
you know, and all of that is still business.
Sure.
As
Sure.
a preacher, it was still business. I mean, I got engagements all the time. I was on the road preaching
Mm-hmm.
all the time. So I was
Mm-hmm.
getting offerings when I go to churches, and my friends my age were struggling, still trying to figure out how they're gonna eat after going back to school, you know?
So share. Do you mind sharing a little bit, shifting because I mean the preaching, the playing, the directing, all of that still remained, but there was a point where you may have the your business savviness shifted, right,
Yes.
to other areas of your skills and talents.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that comes along with being an entrepreneur. You
Mm-hmm.
learn how to shift with the seasons,
Good.
and you have the multiple streams of income. People talk about that all the time. Income wasn't flowing everywhere all the time, but passion was.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're doing your passion, you don't think about the money part first. You think
Right.
about feeling fulfilled
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And anything I was doing, I always learned to make sure I feel like it's what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I learned a little later, study the craft. Don't just do it, get
Mm-hmm.
better at it. And I really had a big old challenge going on because in the 80s, when I was coming along, most people thought that guys who designed clothing were gay.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
good.
that was described to me by so many people,
Mm-hmm.
even in family. People's like, why don't you do it with your hands dirty? You know,
And
what
what
did
does
that
it
mean?
mean? What
You
is
know,
it like?
so I was an architectural engineer major first. That was my
Mhm.
major first.
Wow.
Because growing up, anything that had to do with my hands is what God blessed.
Right.
I realized that looking back. And so I built model scale houses having no experience, but to follow
Mhm.
what I saw in the books, making blueprints.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I went into school doing that. And in fact, I got hired to do a gentleman who was a friend of our family's to redesign their home.
Oh
And
wow.
I spent a whole summer in their house taking measurements and doing sketches and blueprints. And
Mhm.
he literally remodeled their house from my blueprints.
Mhm.
You know, and I didn't have a degree or anything. So
Sure.
most people like in the family were like, yes, that's the way to go. Be an engineer, make lots of money, you
Right.
know. But I didn't feel happy. I
Right.
didn't
Right.
feel like that was I still
You were
had clothing
fulfilled.
on my mind.
Mhm.
I still had all of that on my mind. And that was the thing I spent the most time doing. And so I had to learn how to be my first cheerleader, be the
So good.
biggest investor, because that's what an entrepreneur is. They
Absolutely.
take risk. An
Hmm.
entrepreneur takes risk outside of the norm. You're willing to do it and not get paid versus being comfortable on a job 9 to 5 because the paycheck is there. I'd rather struggle and enjoy it than to have a paycheck and someone's telling me what time to go to the bathroom, how long my coffee break is, so I was a risk taker. I was a risk taker.
That's so good. Okay, so let's go there. So often you hear people say, I'm gonna start this business. I'm gonna start that business because, as I mentioned, I'm sick of somebody telling me what to do. I'm gonna have my own business hours. I'm gonna have and forgetting or not realizing. I shouldn't say forgetting. Sometimes if you don't know, you don't know how much work goes in on the front end and how much trial and error comes on the front end and how much failure or errors or
Exactly.
mistakes come on the front end before you even get to see reap the benefit of dot dot dot.
Yeah, and on that note, it's important then to find your match, who it is that's doing it that you admire. Because if you really find them, you read their story.
Mm-hmm.
And most successful entrepreneurs will gladly tell you they failed before they succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
And then here comes where passion comes in. If you don't mind failing at it
Mm-hmm.
and you don't even see it as failing, all you know is, hey,
Mm-hmm.
well, at least I learned, that
Mm-hmm.
chances are you're made for that.
Sure.
But if you get to flipping out and got to go see a therapist because you just lost $200, because if I had known it's going to cost me $200, I wouldn't have gone. Then you're not the entrepreneur. You need
Mm-hmm.
to work for someone else. Let them take the risk, and you get paid and guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
But the fulfillment is not always there. So I feel for me, learning what others went through to get there was important for me. And back in the 80s, we didn't have social media like this.
Right.
So you got magazines, you got books,
Yeah.
which took discipline
Yeah.
because you had to take the time to read it, you know. And
Which
I
goes.
wanted it so badly. I read everybody's stuff because I wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted it.
Well, I mean, you said two main things so thus far. One, you believed in yourself. You believed that
Absolutely.
you
And
could
I
come
had
out of.
people that taught me to believe in me and they supported my belief in me. I
Correct.
mean, the number of people who wore my clothing, my aunt, Pastor Karen Johnson, I think
Mhm.
is one of the lucky charms in my life. When I first started making clothes, she was one of my customers.
Wow.
And she proudly wore what I designed on the runway. We had a
Mhm.
big old show at Baldwin Center in Crownsville. She was first lady. And
Mhm.
I'll never forget, I made this striped silk set, a
Wow.
suit. There was a jacket and pants, and it looked good. You didn't even look in the inside. But she struck that on the runway. Then I made this black dress that had an asymmetrical hemline. And I mean, she not only wore it on the runway, she wore it to church banquet,
Yeah.
on a cruise,
Yeah.
and when people do those kind of things and willing to invest in you when you haven't gotten there,
Mhm.
well, you think you made it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
But it gives you that extra oomph because they
Sure.
supported you. And when I started the clothing line Modern Priestwear, I made the first dress for her. And
Wow.
and she counseled with me daily about what she feels women need in a dress. And I
Mhm.
fashioned and made that dress, and she got the first one off the press
Mhm.
as a gift
Mhm.
from me for graduating with her PhD. And
That's
she
so
got the first dress. And a few months later, 12 million people saw my clothing.
yeah.
So Auntie Karen, I'm coming back to you every time I have an idea.
I love it. So here's a question for you. Have you found, in your experience, have you ever thought, oh, I'm going to work on this a new business, but you learned that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing?
Of course.
And this is really for those that feel like I think I'm supposed to do it, but I'm not really sure, and I get frustrated, right? I mean, because you spoke to it, passion. I always say passion will push you past. Passion will push you past how you feel about a thing.
Yes,
You'll
it
find
will.
yourself doing it even though you don't want to do it, but because your passion is there, you know you're supposed to do it, right? But
Absolutely.
have you ever worked on a project that you felt like I'm going to start this new thing? and this is where I'm supposed to do, and then realize, this is not my area. This is not where I belong.
Absolutely, because it's like a child. In the early stages of a child's life, they're exploring. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying everything. They go from one toy to the next. You think they like that toy, they never touch it. And then later they come back looking for it, and they're exploring, they're finding themselves. And I feel like in the early stages of trying to, delve into what you believe is your passion, it's
Mm-hmm.
trial, it's
Mm-hmm.
testing, it's working, and it helps you to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Because I realized early, very early, when my grandmother saw me on her sewing machine, I noticed I love putting things together, but I didn't like taking it apart.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother's rule was, this is a hot mess. You need to take that seam out. And I'm like, as long as it look good on the outside. And she's like, oh no, you wouldn't get me wearing that. That's what she would say. You ain't gonna catch
Right,
me wearing that.
right,
And it
right.
used to make me so mad because it was true. And it was a reflection of
The type
my
of
lack
work.
of discipline and to
Mm-hmm.
stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
But what made a difference was when I was investing my own money instead of someone else's.
Okay.
And I'm going to the fabric store and Parole Shopping Center and buying expensive lace from Italy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know there wasn't too much room for a whole lot of messing up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you got to pay the price, you think a little bit more about how many more times I'm going to try it this way
Yeah.
before I realize this may not be it. But when you didn't spend all that money and you
Yeah.
still haven't gotten it quite right and you still believe you got it,
You'll find a way
chances
to
are
make it
you
work.
got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Because listen, nobody's going to believe in your product if you don't believe in it.
Well, that's the truth.
And people bought my product from high school. I just opened a flagship store in August, and two of my high school friends came back. One came all the way from Pennsylvania to surprise me
Mm,
because they wore my prom dresses in the 12th grade and brought me pictures from the 12th grade. And that just teared me up because they believed in me
yeah.
when I hadn't yet even proven myself.
Well, this is something I would like to say, Apostle, even though your work today is very much more skilled and savvy than what you did before, the
Yes.
work spoke for you, right? Because the
Yes.
what even though the product itself wasn't 100% maybe, but the
Hmm.
passion, the love, the attention, all made up for
And
that.
the timing.
Correct. And that's
And timing
that's
and
good.
creativity and the gifts that see,
Oh, that's
because
so good.
entrepreneurship will only use the gifts that you possess.
That's good.
If
Say
you
that one more
and your
again.
gifts, yeah, being in business should only be because it's the giftings you have, and those giftings make room for you.
Yes.
Okay. You should never get into something just because that's where the money is. The money is going to be wherever the creativity is.
That's
And
good.
creativity and timing and not being afraid to take risks. These are all the things that are going to push you to find you. And when you
Mhm.
find you, what you're marketing is you. You're not marketing clothing.
Item.
I'm marketing me.
Exactly.
When somebody says, "Who are you wearing?" I'm wearing Craig Coast Couture. I found out people would lie and say they were wearing me. I ain't getting mad. That's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
I'm like, what? They think my stuff is that good that they're gonna lie and say I'm Craig Coast made it. Okay. Now, if it's a hot mess and you saying Craig Coast
Oh
made it,
no, you not.
I'm mad. I'm gonna say, that is not me. I don't know if there's another Craig Coast,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Diane.
you're
Diane.
marketing who you are. This is what bothers me today.
Mhm.
That people are branding, but they're letting other people brand them and they're turning out like they're not.
Right.
You're becoming a carbon copy of them.
Something else. Mm-hmm.
That says a whole lot,
Yeah.
Tanya.
Yeah.
That
I
says a
agree.
whole lot that you actually start taking pictures of yourself, but it's not you anymore.
Right. 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 Right.
Because what it suggests is that you don't have the confidence you need.
The self. Mm-hmm.
And rather than branding, you may need to go and just start learning,
Mm-hmm.
and realize your strengths, your weaknesses, your abilities, and your inabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I knew my giftings. I know where my best work was. For the longest time, I was into evening wear
Mm-hmm.
because evening wear is really easy to make.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh
easy to
wow.
make.
Really? Wow. So intricate.
You can take a piece of fabric and put a safety pin in it and people want to wear it, especially if you make it look good.
Yeah.
But Stephanie taught me sewing, not designing,
Mhm.
sewing. I came with design.
Sure.
But she says, I'm going to teach you the thing you're going to really need to know. You
Mm-hmm.
need to know how things are constructed.
That's good.
Now, listen, I'll be honest. I
Good.
was not excited about learning that the step 1, 2, 3, 4. I just wanted her
Mm-hmm.
scrap fabric, give me a sewing machine, and look at what I made,
Mm-hmm.
and put it on the runway.
Right.
But I'm so glad she taught me that because I went back to school and I majored in that.
Mm.
And that was necessary. I needed to know how clothing is constructed. I needed
Mm-hmm.
to know where pockets go inside of a lining and where they don't go. I needed to know industry rules. I needed to know about flat pattern and draping. I needed to know about tailoring because it will only expand my ability.
Right.
Sometimes your creativity has a ceiling on it because your giftings and ability has a ceiling on it.
So I was in a training today. True story. I was today. One of the other components about entrepreneurship, to your point, is constantly allowing yourself to educate yourself about what's out there, so that you don't hit that ceiling. And I got a big bun, but that's a ceiling. I don't. I
But
don't
if you hit it, even know that you hit it.
exactly.
Being able to recognize that you hit the ceiling is so important because if you can't see it, you're not going to reach beyond it.
Well, then there's a whole nother discussion as to whether you're comfortable or not. And as an
But
entrepreneur,
who says being an entrepreneur is comfortable?
well, I'm saying if you've hit the ceiling and don't realize you've hit the ceiling, you might be in
Oh,
a
yeah.
comfortability and having learned that there is always room for growth,
Well,
right?
you know what they say in the industry of fashion, one day you're in, the next day you're out. That's what happens when people
Mhm.
won't go beyond their ceiling,
Yeah.
where they just think that what they're doing, let's glory in the pants I made. Well,
Mm.
after a while, those pants are out.
Outdated.
And
Hmm.
you might want to come up with something else because there are other people who have seen your pants and they've seen the next. And they're going to get to the next before you if you think you're already there and you haven't stepped outside of the place where you are. Which means you got to learn how to love what other people do and don't think they're your competition. They're not your competition.
They're just in their lane.
They're healthy competition. They're
Mhm.
just people doing what they do, trying to get where they're trying to go. And when you celebrate others, you will run into a circle of people that will not mind helping you. But you got to be willing to say, I'm not there. You are. I love what you do.
Hmm.
I tried to help a person one time and gave them a platform to show their things. Mind you, I'd already been picked up by a TV show,
Hmm.
but that person took that platform as thinking they were to be equal with me and
Hmm.
compete with me. I'm like, Dodo Bird, seriously, come
Right.
on. How
Right.
many years I didn't made a dress in 2 hours?
Right. 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 So here's a question for you, Apostle. Right. So I remember when and even now, I sometimes am challenged with this. I have an idea, I know what I want to do, but there is that fear of, if I share this with Apostle Coates, will he take that idea and run with it? So, how do you suggest to someone finding someone that they can be honest and truthful with, that can help them instead of uh
Yes. Only tell your business, tell your information only to people who are too busy doing their own thing to even think about what you're doing.
Mhm.
Because I'm too busy to jump over in your dream.
Right.
I'm busy fulfilling mine and I'm loving it.
That's
If
good.
if if I take something of yours, it's because I'm not content with something of mine.
Mm, that's good.
Which means my circle is the wrong people. I got too many haters telling me, you the bomb, you better than so and so. I'm not better. I just have an opportunity to show
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah.
And instead of focusing on being better, I better focus on giving my best so that opportunity doesn't get mishandled and become a
Mhm.
waste.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so for me, it's really about appreciating what God gave somebody. Like Christian Siriano, I think is a great example for me.
Mhm.
Christian Siriano is who I was when I was his age. If there had been a Project One Way, there would have been a Craig Coates famous in that area before Christian Siriano. But it
Mhm.
was about timing and opportunities.
Sure.
I was already very invested in what I do as a pastor because there was
Yes.
a season I stopped sewing,
Mhm.
and put it all aside
Mhm.
And then that season I was passionate about what I was doing. And so when I heard about him, I was cheerleader for him. I'm like, Annapolis, yes.
Mhm,
But there
mhm.
was still a part of me that felt like, man, if they only had this opportunity when I was his age. And so what I did is I kind of got my kicks of living through what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I'm proud of him.
yeah, yeah.
He worked in Annapolis Mall,
Wow.
in a hair salon there before reaching that level. And I know what that felt like to be working in the Woodies. And so it really gave me the juice to
Mhm,
pull my machine back out, not to
mhm.
compete. He
Sure,
worked
sure,
and he earned it.
sure.
But the fact I pulled it out because there's still something in me
Mhm.
that the world needs to see.
Which goes
The
back to
whole world may not love it,
yeah.
but there is a world that does. And I don't want to rob them of not enjoying it.
So two questions. One, that with the last thing that you just said goes back to passion, because there was a period when the pandemic hit, right before the pandemic hit, you were focusing more on clergy attire.
So yeah. So you
Yeah.
want to know how that happened?
Yes.
I'll tell you how that happened. Because back in college, while sewing clothing and prom season, when
Mhm,
prom season was over, I still needed something to do. And
mhm,
one of my very good friends said to me, why don't you think about making like choir robes? Because I have choirs.
mhm, mhm,
And so I sat down, I said, never thought about that. And that day I made a choir robe.
mhm.
It was white, purple, and turquoise. That night, I got a phone call from Jeff Jacobs,
Wow.
my hero in the gospel industry,
Wow.
who asked me, "Do I make robes?"
Wow.
He said, "I've got a group that needs robes, but the time period is very short." Now I needed money,
Right.
and I said, "You're not gonna believe this. I just made a sample." He said, "Bring it. Can you come tonight?" So
Wow.
when Jeff Jacobs tells you to
Timing.
get there, you get there. That's
Right.
your mentor. And I
Right.
was like, yeah, I can. And I get there that night, and there's 115 people. And
Wow.
they say they love my robe.
Wow. Yeah.
I have 1 month to make 115 robes that I've never made before with
Mm.
no advertisement needed.
Wow.
And those robes were on the cover of their CD.
Wow. That is
I'm just sharing how God will take your gift if you're willing to be flexible, and He'll
mhm,
point you in a direction where where He's made room for you. You don't have to compete where He's made room for you. And that's how I got back into clergy. Where so I started making robes. My choir, the Lawrence C. Sherman Mass Choir, I made the most beautiful robe that anybody's ever seen. Nobody's seen that robe to this day. And I'm
mhm.
sewing robes and making and having choir rehearsals the night before choir anniversary. My mother, my friends on the choir, and I are in Miss Rosemary, who's a member of my church. One of the
Mhm.
mothers said, we're in her house. The whole house is a factory now, and we are sewing these robes. We stayed up all night, went to church the next day, had a crazy, amazing choir day. All of that after being up 24 hours making robes.
Mm, mm, mm.
So I started getting calls from everywhere for choir robes. My
Mhm.
good friend, the Showell family, Dee Dee Showell, called from Baltimore that
Mhm.
December. And she says, we need robes for the young adults. I want you to come up here and I know what I want. So here I am there. Refreshing Springs call.
Mhm.
So I ended up, my gift made room for me.
Yeah.
Notice something. I ain't done no branding. There was no social media where I had to post my face on Instagram or nothing.
Mhm.
I just had to believe in myself, and people believe in me, and they spread it
Mhm.
by word of mouth. So when I stopped sewing, I
Mhm.
brought out a company that did embroidery while I was still sewing, excuse me. A
Mhm.
company that was embroidering all my choir robe fronts were going out of business. And I walked in, I bought the business. I paid them $50,000 cash and I bought the whole business.
Mhm.
I set the business up, CC monograms, because I was like, I'm gonna need somebody to do the monogramming. So I learned it. I went there, studied under them for 2 weeks, learned monogramming, opened up the company. I'm thinking I'm only gonna be monogramming choir robes, and I end up monogramming everything because when I brought the business, I brought all their accounts. So now I'm working for IBM. I'm working for big boat shows and companies, you know, big steakhouses and restaurants because my gift made room for me.
That's huge. That's
So,
huge.
so a time came where the ministry was growing so much,
Mm-hmm.
I started making shirts and sweatshirts and stuff for the
Mm-hmm.
ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so then I shut that part down and I started just focus on ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, the Lord has it that I'm pushing Pastor Candace to pastor, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give her a gift. And I decided to make her a robe that I had in my mind. I said, because to me, she has the body of real people.
Right.
You know, every proportion isn't the same.
Sure.
And a lot of African American women fit that category. And I
Sure.
was like, I'm gonna make her a dress. And I made this beautiful paisley dress for
Yes,
her.
it was. Is.
After the service, it was on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And we got over 1,000 likes. And something said, bing,
Mm-hmm.
you're going back into business. And
Mm-hmm.
so I called my Aunt Karen and I said, I've got this new dress idea and I need your input,
Mm-hmm.
and she right there, Well, first of all, we need something that don't make us look like men. Second of all,
Right,
we
right,
need something
right.
that's we are menopausal. And
Mhm.
she gave it to me straight, no chaser.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes, I'm designing and redesigning.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to open another business at that point, modern priestwear, because
Mm-hmm.
it was going to be a modern turn on priestwear for women because there was a need. And what happened, Tanya? 2 days after I branded the name,
Mm-hmm.
my aunt calls me from she's an usher in her church. And she said, the ushers, the United Methodist women, not ushers, excuse me, the United Methodist women, they need stoles. Can you come up with the idea for us?
Mm-hmm.
So here's my first job.
Mm-hmm.
I created the stole, showed it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they get it, but since that time, which has been 8 years, I am the guy that makes all the red, beautiful stoles for the United Methodist women, which is nationwide.
It's huge.
My gift
Yes.
made room for me.
Yes.
Now, I say all that to say that if you're meant to have multiple businesses, it makes no sense that you have multiple businesses, but they don't complement each other or
Mm-hmm.
they don't feed each other. One
Mm-hmm.
business opened the door for another.
Mm-hmm.
Different things happened so that I could afford to do different things. And Modern Priestwear ran for 5 years. And all at that same time, I'm doing ministry because,
Mm-hmm.
that's a business too.
Mm-hmm.
So Fresh Start Church is a ministry. It's a business though,
Mm-hmm.
and I thank God that over the years, I've managed to be able to get Fresh Start. First Christian is part of my heart, but to give Fresh Start a portfolio of over $3 million.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but I went back and learned business. I
That's it.
learned business plan writing. I learned from other pastors that are successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to celebrate pastors in the region that are successful.
Mm-hmm.
Because the less time you have being intimidated, the more time you have to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Why I
So,
hate celebrate.
so Apostle, let's shift a little bit to the
Yes,
practical piece of it, right?
sure.
Because oftentimes people, they don't know what, we say, well, you just got to get out there and you got to do it. You got to believe in yourself. Like that's great. But I hear people say, yeah, but what does that mean? Right? Like, what do I do? So can you talk a little bit about your process in opening your flag store? What were the steps? How did you know timing? Right? I mean, because we talked about the timing of the Lord and knowing when to shift from one business to a next. But then what did that entail? Like knowing you have to go to the state and getting your name and all of those
Yes.
other practical components that are needed in business.
Right. I learned it because I took a business plan writing class. In that class, Sheila Johnson, shout out to Sheila Johnson. She's the tax lady, and she's amazing. Sheila taught me how to channel what I had so that it could go further. And I took a chance and took a business plan writing class through the Community Action Agency.
Mm.
And I stuck with it and wrote a business plan for the priestly garment business. At that time, it was called Glory Garments. It was
Mhm.
all robes. And after I came out of that course, I knew everything that I didn't know about writing a business plan and about making the business legitimate, because being in business is costly.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is one thing people need to understand. It is more likely that you go into debt than to be successful.
Mhm.
Right. I failed many times and was in debt many times,
Mhm.
and praying for another client, and the Lord sends somebody, and I'm still mismanaging the money, and I'm gonna go eat out and go movies and treat
That's
myself,
so good. That's so good.
but it was all a learning experience. But I really believe that the next level business course really turned it around for me,
That's,
because when I got in that course at the end, she had her students present their project, which was their business plan. And
mhm.
an entrepreneur was sitting in the audience and afterwards came up to me and he says, "I'm super impressed by you." He said, "I heard a lot about you, but what are you working on for the next 5 years?" Well, I can answer that because the business
Mhm.
plan course taught me to think 5 years down the road. I said, "I
Mhm.
want to open a barbershop." He
Mhm.
said, "That's interesting." I said, "No, not just a barbershop." And I
Mhm.
started talking about the reasons why.
Yeah.
Mind you, I don't cut hair,
Yeah.
but I know what I was sick of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess what? 2 days later, I'm having lunch with him, and he became the investor on the barbershop. And our church opened a barbershop
Mhm.
and ran that barbershop, and we still own that property. And that property has been a means to many ends.
So awesome.
So, first, I would say that if you're not willing to learn the business part of it, then you're going to cripple yourself,
Mhm.
because you're either going to have to depend on someone else that you have to pay,
Mhm.
or if they're not getting paid, it's too good to be true.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you're going to operate at a deficit. The other thing I feel is so important, Tanya, is being willing to stop when it's time. Be
Wow.
willing when you get this inkling that it is time to navigate away from this, to be willing,
That's
instead
so
of still
good.
fighting for the ship to stay afloat when the ship is going down.
Wow.
Okay? And that I was flexible. I'm willing to move when God says move. When I drove up to my store at Modern Priestwear one day on the way there, I called my spiritual son because I know he's prophetic. And I said, "Damien," I said, "I got to tell you, I feel the Lord is telling me I got to move on from this." I
Wow.
said, "I feel like there's something more." I said, "Pray for me because I'm going to hear what God is saying."
Mhm.
And the moment I said to the Lord, "I'm willing to give this up and not
Go.
renew another 5 years.
Wow.
I'm willing to do that." Because let me tell you something. Pandemic didn't break me.
Mm-mm.
Pandemic, we shifted to making masks.
Yeah.
We made more money trying to help people stay healthy
Right.
than, because I just had a bad season. Prom came and COVID came, and I had to reimburse everybody for
Yeah.
prom
Yeah.
because we didn't have a COVID clause. We hadn't had COVID.
Right.
And my worker said to me, she says, "You know what I love about working for you?" She says, "You never give up. You are so flexible."
Mm.
That blessed me so much.
Mm, mm,
And that
mm.
gave me the unction to say, "Okay, so God is telling me it's something else I need to be doing." And that's when he says, "Listen, you've worked so hard as a pastor, you have grown other people." He said, "I have not forgotten what I promised to do for you when
Mhm.
you left high school, went to college, and instead of going to New York to be a designer, you accepted my calling to preach."
Mm.
Because that was a sacrifice, Tanya. I was
Right,
going
right,
to New
right,
York.
right.
I
Yeah,
was All my friends at school reunion thought I had gone to New York. Everybody thought it. They just said,
sure.
when we had social media, we just knew you were famous somewhere.
Right, right, right,
You
right.
know, that's the impact that my design creativity was having. But I didn't, because I heard the call of God on my life. And I fought with
Mhm.
it from the 10th grade to the 12th grade. And then I finally surrendered in 1987, 3 years after graduation. And I preached my first sermon in March of 87.
Mhm.
Okay. I gave my life to the Lord in March of 82.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And I chose not to go away to school. And then I heard the Lord say to me, "I'm getting ready to reward you for
Mm.
your willingness."
Mhm.
He said, "Open your store with your label, Craig Coates,
Mhm.
not Modern Priestwear.
Mhm.
That's great, but no, do Craig Coates now." Well,
Mm.
you know, that just set me free in a place I didn't know I was bound because I put it on the shelf and I just said, them days are behind me, apparently. But he's saying,
Yeah.
look, you've been doing prom every year, you're booked and you don't even have to advertise.
Mm-hmm.
That's Craig Coates,
Yeah.
not modern priestwear. And
Wow.
look, that's a business decision. You can't
Wow.
keep calling it priestwear when it's a wedding gown.
Right. That's so
So
good.
I wrote a business plan
Mm-hmm.
and immediately every door opened.
Wow.
Every door opened. And a matter of I gave notice to the landlord that I wasn't renewing where I was. I
Mm-hmm.
just knew there was a bigger place
Mm-hmm.
and and I mean really bigger place for
Mm-hmm.
me. But I just
Mm-hmm.
knew I needed to get into the retail area and out of the warehouse area,
Mm-hmm.
which meant I need to set up a real store with
Mm-hmm.
inventory. And I
Mm-hmm.
was super excited. And God made it all happen for me. And that's how that happened. But I had to be willing to
That's
accept
so
that
good.
this is the end of a season for something. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the end of modern priestwear, but it was the end of modern priestwear as a
That's
store,
mm-hmm.
physical store, but not the end of modern priestwear as an online store. Because for the past 8 years, the bulk of my business for modern priestwear were online, and there were people I'd never seen their faces.
Mm-hmm.
I design, make the dress by their measurements, and ship it
Right.
all around the world,
Right.
Australia,
Right.
Africa,
Right.
Jamaica, everywhere. And the Lord saying, I set you up. You don't have to have a store location for this.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you just needed to trust me in the pandemic that I would still take care of you.
You know why I feel well, number one, godly proud to one, be a friend, but also be a part of your ministry is because you, you have, to what your worker said, leaps and bounds, right? Leaps and bounds in ministry and in the marketplace,
Thank God.
right? In the ministry and in the marketplace. Sometimes when people get get ideas, they're challenged with, is this a Tien said, you are amazing. Jackie said, that's so
No, she's
amazing.
amazing. That's why I had her model my collection.
She did model your collection. Yep.
Because if you remember, Tanya, I want you to lose your thought. Go ahead.
Yep. Yep. I was, so the question, I was going to ask a question. Sometimes people are like, I have this ministry I want to do. I have this idea, and they're perplexed between, is it ministry or is it marketplace? And how to bridge the two, because I do believe, like you said, it's gifting, but now you have to understand who is your market, right? So yeah.
Okay, so right away, immediately I thought about this. Whether it's ministry or marketplace, it needs money.
Yeah.
It ain't flying without money,
Yeah.
right? And so whether it's one or the other, you got to make sure it's going to make some money. Because even ministry still relies on funding.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's grant money, whatever it is. But if it's ministry, there has to be the component that is really ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Paul was a tent maker.
I was going to go to my 4. Mm-hmm.
But Paul tent making opened the door for what Paul really does.
Was called to do. Mm-hmm.
And I can honestly say making clothing opened the door for who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
And at the core of anything I do, who I really am in God should never be compromised.
Yeah.
In other words, it's great to be a great designer, but I can never lose sight of the spiritual me.
Yeah.
Because that is the launching pad for everything else.
Absolutely.
That's the doorway for favor. Absolutely. That I always want God to be first.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are preachers I would have never even had a conversation with if they didn't need a garment. And although they just saw me as that's that little guy that people say make the clothes, God always made a way for me to get in and talk to their need.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, where you been hiding all this time? I haven't been hiding. It just wasn't time for me to meet you until now.
That's so good. Oh man, oh my gosh.
The gift makes room for you.
Yeah, it goes right back to that. And here's the other piece. I think if we don't take anything away from tonight, the word flexibility is huge, because the truth of the matter is what you're doing today may be the segue to where you think you want to go, or the segue to where you don't even realize God is taking you. I would have never in a million years would have thought I would have been in real estate and have a passion for investing in real estate. And that was not, I was strictly social work. That was it. Everything social work, the daddy's girls, the book, everything social work and ministry. Marketplace, real estate. Me, I was a person whose credit was horrible. I've been there.
The key is you heard God when he said it.
Yes.
That's at the end of the day. So many people want to run and do stuff, but God ain't say nothing.
Yeah.
And when a man's ways please the Lord may give you enemies be at peace with you. People will believe in you just because God put favor on you. You know, and not only are you a real estate agent, but you own properties. Right. See, what I hate is for people to promote something they don't have.
Right. Oh boy.
This multi-tier marketing and stuff, and they're trying to get you to buy in, but they ain't made no money.
Sure.
It's just another one of their attempts to try to get rich.
So practical.
I'm not trying to get rich. I am trying to be the best me.
Right.
Which I believe is a very rich man too.
That part. So
it just happens to come with it.
So that's a good question. So here's another practical tip. When you talk about learn more about your craft, what are some of the things that you would say to someone who is reaching out to someone? And I want to start a hair business. I want to write a book. I want to, whatever it is. And Mary Jane is going to help me. What are some of the questions that you want to tell that person to ask Mary Jane?
Ask Mary Jane, what has she accomplished or he accomplished? Mary Jo, Mary Jane, any of them. Ask them first before you commit to anything. Show me what you produce.
Yeah.
First of all, take their business name and go online and look it up and see if they even registered in the state.
Look it up.
Because let me tell you something. If the person says this is what they do as a business and they're not registered to the state, they've already failed business 101 for me. Ask them, did you make money? Are you still making money? How has it made your life better being this? And then listen to see what they tell you to do next. Because if they don't tell you to research your market, if they don't ask you why you want to do it, is there a demand for what you do? Then you're talking to the wrong person. The right people are going to almost discourage you with questions. One time I went to see a millionaire and he was in the church and I was praising God all the way to his house because he said he's going to give me $1 million. I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm no. Almost missed the turn to his house. I get to the house, we'd all eat some lunch and everything. And we're sitting there. And in my mind, I'm saying, where's the checkbook? Now, because he really was a millionaire, he knew what I was asking. He knew what's going on in my brain. Sure. He says, well, we've had a great time. He's sharing all his little tips with me. He said, so until the next time, I was like, next time? See, next time I come here and ain't get no money, right? And finally, he said it because I didn't. He says, you're looking for the check, aren't you? I said, yeah, that would be nice. He said, I just gave it to you. Wow. I said, no, you didn't give me anything. He said, no, I did. Wow. I gave you $1 million worth of advice. Wow. He said, because it came from a millionaire.
Wow.
$5 worth of advice comes from somebody with just $5. $1 million worth of advice comes from someone that has made the 1 million. So they gave you $1 million. You didn't even have to pay it back.
Wow. That's so good. That's so good.
And I'm like, Lord, that's so good. I was like, Lord, I'm disappointed, but I'm going to try to go with what he said. I was like, the ride home was a quiet ride. I ain't had no music on. There was no tongue talking.
You were shouting out
to God because I'm like, now this is a trip. But then the Lord talked to me. He said, if I told you what you were going to get and you would have never gone and you would never have what you have now.
Jesus, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah. Being willing to receive, even if what you receive doesn't look like what you were expecting.
But the greatest thing you can receive is advice.
Yes.
Because it don't cost you anything.
Yeah.
It save you a whole lot.
It's nothing worse than to ask for. So right now in real estate, I have 2 mentees currently. And I also, I'm a team leader. So I also have a team. And it's very interesting when you watch the dynamics of the three of them, who excel and who's struggling.
Yeah.
Because when you have a mentor, the goal of the mentor is to save you a few steps, just like a parent, right? As a
Yeah.
parent,
You
my
don't want
job
us
is
to
to save
fail.
you a few
Absolutely
steps.
not.
Yeah. And so failure is a choice, right? I believe failure is a choice. It's a choice because either you didn't listen, either you didn't get the advice or the guidance that you needed, or you didn't listen to the advice and guidance that you needed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so being open to being mentored is very key. And I have mentors that
Yeah.
I got a client. Oh yeah, wow. What did you do? I did step A, B, and C. I said, well, isn't that what we talked about? Yes. Well, did. Why are you surprised with the result when you followed the steps?
And that's the difference between failing and succeeding. You
Yeah.
know, you can feel like a failure because you didn't meet the mark you expected to meet. But in the eyes of someone who's been there, you're right on course.
Yeah.
You needed that lesson. And so if you keep seeing it as failure, then you will fail. If
Mm-hmm.
you see it as a lesson, one of the lessons learned, a lesson when it hurts, you realize it. This was good for me.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy said, finding mentors who are able, and I'm sorry, for those that are joined in, if you have any questions or any suggestions or any comments, please put them and I'll make sure that we post it up.
I'm
Jeremy,
not talking to Jeremy because my Cowboys lost and he did something, but that's all right.
oh
Go ahead.
my goodness.
I might talk to him.
So Jeremy says, finding mentors who are able or willing to help can be difficult.
Okay, but that's part of the growth that you experience called risk taking. Part of risk taking is not just money.
Yeah.
It's about putting yourself out there and hoping that it comes back successful. Think of how many people had an invention that they took so many places and got the no
Mm,
until they got the yes.
mhm.
Well, you might be thinking the no's were bad, but the no's were really building you. It
Right.
was really testing to see how serious are you about it. There are a lot of people that didn't give me good advice at all. There are people that saw what I was trying to do and didn't have no interest in trying to help me. And I had to stop. I had to not allow it to deter me. It just wasn't the right one, and I keep moving. And that is what it is with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is trial and error anyway, because chances are you're holding on to one of the greatest ideas that no one has ever seen. So
Mhm.
how can anyone tell you how to do it if no one has seen it?
I'd even tag onto that motive, right?
Right.
What is your motive for business? Why do you want to get in business?
And why do you want to help me in business?
Wow.
That's in motive too. You
Yeah.
test the motives. So why are you so willing to help me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we get crushed by people who can't help us, that want to control us. So then when someone comes on that can help you, you reject it. Usually the people that can help you are not intimidated by you.
Right.
They have something of their own going on, and
Mhm.
helping you is a part of giving back.
Mhm. 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 And then position yourself to be around people that are going to pour into you in a way that is necessary, but don't always expect it, right? You got to position
Yeah.
yourself. Who is your circle?
Yes.
Apostle, you spoke about being
Oh,
in the
that
business.
circle.
Yeah, yeah. You talked about being in the business class, and it was through being in the business class that you learned or came in contact with this particular individual.
Well, I discovered an investor who felt
Right.
like I had the disciplines that it would be a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, yeah.
You
But
know,
it came from you, that being in opening up yourself to a being positioned properly.
yeah. You know what's sad? How many people have great potential but won't submit themselves
Mm,
because you think because you got a great idea that means you know everything.
hmm.
But vision without provision is just a dream.
That is so true.
And if it's a dream too long, it's a nightmare
That's so true.
because you're upset because you ain't never see it happen in your life. You know,
Wow.
and I say this even from a ministry perspective. It blows my mind. 29 years of pastor. I'm going into my 30th year pastoring.
Wow.
I know that I was called to it. That's very
Mhm.
important. important because we've been successful ever since we started. We've not failed at anything. God has blessed us beyond measure. But I look at so many pastors that have failed
It's so good.
because they started it out of anger with someone else, out of
Mm-hmm.
competition with someone else. And bottom line, God didn't tell them do it.
Or they didn't stop when they were supposed to.
Come on, we can go there too.
That part.
Yeah, all of that, right?
Yeah.
But it's because we don't understand submission.
Yeah.
Because submission will make it so that God will make it so he don't even have to embarrass you.
Yeah.
Someone that you submitted to can love you enough to say, it's not your time.
Yeah. That's so
I
good.
love you, but I see that you're going to fall on this. It's not the time. So that's why when I believe God called me to pastoring, I had to get permission from the men that led me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they didn't see it and they mentored me, then
Mm-hmm.
I can't say, oh, they just jealous. What they jealous of?
Right.
I don't understand why people jealous to this day. All of the pain and everything that comes with leading, what
Yeah.
you jealous of?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
That's so good. Well, Apostle, it is 8:02. What are some final thoughts or tips that you would like to share with those that are watching about starting their business, maintaining their business, and even or even how it applies to their spiritual walk? To connect with
Boy, you
people.
gave me a whole lot for the last few minutes.
I mean, anything. I was giving.
I got everything you said now. Men, we can't multitask like that. But no, what I believe I understand is that you want me to just give some quick tips for
Yeah.
people who want to be in business, start a business, or even starting a ministry or have a ministry idea that can become a business.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. For people who have a ministry idea that wants to they could become a business. I want to say, don't narrow the waters you're in to only certain partners or boats. If you want to be successful with a ministry idea, you need to think about partnering with non-ministries. Okay. Partnering with agencies and organizations that believe in your cause so that you have a place to do what you believe your call. You have an audience, you have a marketplace, you have what's your niche. Because if there's a need and you have a product or a service, then you will be very helpful and you will do business. Okay. Another thing I would suggest is a person that has any idea for either business or in ministry to really make God your partner. Make him an equal partner with you in what you have, with the exception of this. Give him 51% and give yourself 49%. Notice I said give it, because God won't take it from you. You've got to be able to believe for 49% of this, but you've got to convince that 1% that only God holds. Okay, so that's my advice. Besides this, on the practical side, please get in a business plan course. There's so many of them now. Get in if you believe in your idea, because oftentimes you will either hit it or quit it in the business plan writing phase. The business plan writing phase will help you know if you're really serious and passionate about it, and if it's even the timing or if it's even something you can hang in there with. Because a business plan writing class is going to also make you do research about what it really takes, what others are doing it. If it's too many people in the market, too many fish and too many boats in one lake can only catch but so many fish, and so this is what I was advised. Those are my two pieces of advice. And get yourself a mentor that's been where you're trying to go. And stop thinking they're jealous of you.
That's so good. Shantae had said earlier, I'm trying to find her note. She had made a note about.
I got one more note while you're trying to find hers.
Go ahead, and then
stop doing favors if you're in business, unless the favors are returnable. Because if you're doing favors and nothing comes out of it except people took advantage of your gift, then you've sown into bad ground.
So
you should always be investing within your mind two things. One, it's a good thing to invest. And number two, it always comes back to me if it's in good ground.
That's so good.
So, so figure out which friends are just trying to get you to pay for dinner and stop doing it. Figure out which people just want you to do their hair because you just starting out and you should be happy that somebody's letting you do their hair.
Mm, mm,
Stop.
mm.
Stop.
I
You
went
might
to
lose 50 people that want to use you, but you'll get 2 that really appreciate you.
I
Okay.
went to a
Stop
training
selling
last
yourself
time.
cheap. Don't sell yourself cheap.
Yeah,
You
no.
do not work overseas where they're paying $2 an hour. Put the price on your product and then put your integrity into that product. Give people more than what they expected.
Mhm.
Those are my ideas for you guys
Ooh,
today.
that was you, man. You done said a whole mouthful right there with that one. No, I was in I was in a training last. Literally, I was in a workshop last night. A new venture that I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
and I'm starting the research piece. And one of the things that he said was, know your worth. Don't sell your product
Right.
short.
Right. Right. Don't overrate yourself, especially
Right.
if you haven't learned your trade and you still doing it the wrong way and don't know the 4 different ways to braid, then don't overrate yourself, but
Right.
appropriately rate yourself so that you market yourself as such. You can't come out with a t-shirt and charge $200 off the spot. Let
Right.
me tell you one of the greatest accomplishments I'm so proud of, that I could charge $160 for a shirt with my name on it and people bought it off the rack until it was almost gone.
Yeah.
That said something. It meant to me, you put so many years in that
Hmm.
people feel you're worth the investment.
Absolutely.
And you know what I say? Look, let me give 2 more things and I'll let it go.
Yeah.
Look, if you're going to buy a product that someone made, wear a name you know.
That's good.
You stop defining yourself by those big names, especially when you're in business and you're trying to be successful. Being successful isn't carrying that $400 bag on your hand.
Mhm.
400, 350 into your business and 50 into a purse is success.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Stop letting someone else define you who don't care about you.
So
They
good.
care that you promoting them, not yourself. Your
Absolutely.
first car don't need to be a Mercedes just because you just made your first $1,000.
Mm.
You go get a hoopty. Let me tell you, I had a hoopty that was so broke down and we were talking about the other day. It was raining hard. I just come from delivering choir robes and my windshield wiper stopped working. And it was raining so hard, I pulled over, got some string out the back of the car that was with one of the road bags, tied one string on one windshield wiper, put it through the window to my friend on the other side, tied it, and I said, pull, pull, pull. And I drove us all the way home. And you know what I was saying? I said, one day
Mhm.
I'm gonna have the car I want. And do
Yeah.
you know, Tanya, every time I would say that, the car I wanted would pass me on the road. And you know what I would do?
Wow.
People might thought it's crazy. I pull the car over and get out and shout on the dirt because that was my
It's
confirmation that
their
I know I'm gonna
confirmation.
be better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in a better place one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did want to say that
That's
you
so
have to, you got to be very careful about jumping the gun and
yeah.
taking your investments and taking your assets and putting them on your back.
That's so good.
Because so often in the Black community, we have rated ourselves by the materialism,
Right.
things that we have. But the materialism can be a sign that you broke as a church mouse.
It's true because you're wearing it,
Yeah.
and which goes to the other piece, the practical piece about the financing of your business. Where's
Build your credit.
where's your
Build your credit.
money?
It's so important. And the last thing I had in my mind that you may come back to me. Don't be afraid to have more than one business idea. Because let me tell you what people say to me all the time. You're doing too much
Too
now.
much.
You're doing
Oh,
too
I
much.
hate that
What else?
phrase.
What else are you going to do? You know what? Then call me Tyler Perry Jr. You
Right.
ain't got no complaints with him. And you watch every show he done wrote. Trump he got businesses everywhere. Not just those things, but Oprah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
We cheer her on. There comes a time you stop cheerleading and you put your pom-poms on and your uniform and get in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Stop saying, whoa, I wish I was rich like Oprah. Well, maybe if you had the work ethics,
Right.
you might would have been there by now. And so I'm a playwright. I have a movie coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I am not listening to the haters. Limit yourself, but this boy's out the box and ain't going back in.
Apostle, and here's a piece. God has so many gifts inside many of us, right? Some of us are just finding the one. There's so many more things, and I don't want to go back to my dad full. I want to be empty. I want to make sure that everything that he has given me, I had reached to the capacity and I'm done. Passion is going to make it happen. He's going to provide the provision. It's not my job to figure it out. It's my job to do.
That's right. And in entrepreneurship, you're going to be stressed a lot.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to, it comes with it. It
Yeah.
comes with it because you're in a world that is competing against you for you to not get there.
Sure.
And especially if you're an African American in business in the United States, there's more against you than for you.
Yeah.
One, a lot of us don't have generational wealth, transfer wealth. We don't have anything to build from. We don't have a name in the bank system or whatever. But it's so important. You said it. You can start with the one thing you're good at, and there's the parable of the talents. The Lord gave more to the men that doubled. One said, "I've given you 5." He said, "Here's 5 more." He said, "I made you 5 more with it." God wants returns on our lives. He don't want you to die being paranoid about, well, I didn't do it because they were hating on me. You know what? He says, shame on you. I done took that gift and gave it to somebody else. It's too late. Work with the one and bring him some returns so he can trust you with more. I made this statement. I trademarked it. And the statement was simply this: you can always have a full menu, but you don't always have to have a full plate. Just because it's on the menu don't mean you got to put it all on your plate at one time. When I take something off the plate, it's because I'm putting something on the plate.
So good.
So for me now, every year, I'll take a 45-day vacation. From October until January 1st, I am now vacationing because I took my first vacation. And like, who does that? You open a flagship store and 3 months after it's open, you can go on vacation for 3 months and pay all your bills, right? But I did because it was necessary, because I need to hear God for the season of my life. And if you're so busy trying to work the business that you don't have time to rest and talk to God, then your business partner that's needed at the table is not there. Or he's there, but you're too busy to hear him. Remember, he owns 51%. That's all I have to say, Tanya. I'm not going to talk me into nothing else.
That is so good.
I would love to host an entrepreneur seminar and teach principles and details. I'd just be curious to know if people be interested. I would love to do it. But at this stage in my life, I'm not looking for 4 people for anything. I'm looking for a crowded room because I have something to say.
Absolutely. Well, that is definitely, I would love, well, I'm all for, I'm for that. We can get the good. We used to have something that was called the Millionaires Club.
Yes, we did.
So
that was amazing.
Yeah. So
gotta bring it back.
I so appreciate you taking the time. I don't take it lightly, and I'm sure those that have.
No, I appreciate you considering me to have this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who else work like a Jamaican?
A lot of people. I just really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That you see that in me. Because this is the truth. A lot of times people know what you're capable of and you're good at, and hate on the inside just won't let them reach out.
Yeah.
And you could be a blessing to them.
Sure.
So, I appreciate that you giving me this opportunity.
Shanta says, let me know when I'm there.
As long as she agrees to decorate the room for me.
She got to decorate it. She got to decorate it.
Bring something to get something.
Tian said, I was told rich people's asset is poor people's liability.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Jesus himself said it.
Yeah.
He said that. He said, he said the wealthy will get wealthy and the poor, it'll be taken from them what they have.
Yeah.
And he was looking at just the condition of their minds, that unfortunately, you'll always be broke and they'll always be rich.
Yeah. Jackie said that she'd be interested. Thank you for your input. You are welcome. Well, listen, everyone, this has been another wonderful Monday. Now, let me just say this, people. Next week, we will not be live. We will not be virtual. We will be live in the building. We are going to, all week, each week, we have been doing a virtual vision board.
That's right.
Next week, we're going to do a physical vision board. So now we're going to have something tangible that we can put up in our homes to really have something to work towards.
That's right.
When you see it, it brings it more to life. So if you are planning on attending, if you haven't signed up, if you're part of our ministry, you can go on our either our website or our app and sign up, or you can just hit me up, shoot me a little text to let me know that you'll be there. I will be taking a final count on Wednesday so that I can provide, I can make sure I have enough supplies for everyone. So Apostle, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And to everyone, remember, this is Worship and Wellness, where we believe in biblical principles, but with practical steps.
You got it. Good
God
night.
bless everyone.